Okay, today I want to get into how narcissists play both sides of the fence. They like to pit people against each other, they like to cause conflict, they like to cause chaos between two people, between two groups, between three people. That would be called triangulation. And they like to sit back and watch the show. So, for today's purposes, I'm going to be getting into I'm going to be taking the subject of narcissism and I'm going to be applying it to a larger scale global issues that are happening right now. So if you're looking for more advice for interpersonal relationships, this might not be the video for you. However, if you do live in the United States, it's kind of important because these are complex things that are going on right now that you might be interested to learn about. So I'm going to get into that kind of stuff today. And then I'm going to just bring up a few different interviews to kind of back up my points. So, what we're seeing today is that there is kind of an extremist sect called the Zionists, and when I say Zionist, I'm not referring to all Jews. We are referring to the extremist sect of the Jews. And Zionists there are Christian and Muslim Zionists as well, so it's not limited to the Jews, okay? But these people actually, well, being a Christian Zionist makes little to no sense, but there are some. But these people actually believe that Christians are inferior. They believe that Christians should be their slaves. They actually believe this, and I'm going to bring up a clip to show you. They look at Christians who they call non-Jews goyim, Goyim, goyim or goys, and they actually believe that these people are inferior. They look at them like cattle or dogs, and that they should be their servants. And if you start researching the Noahide laws, which seems to be what they want to implement in the United States, they actually say that Christians should be punished and actually beheaded if they do not, because they're idolatrous, they're worshiping Yeshua, Jesus Christ, and they see that as idolatry. They do not believe in this whole Trinity. They believe there is one God, and that the fact that we would be, following Jesus Christ and this whole Trinity situation, that this is worshiping a false idol, and that the punishment for this, you would be beheaded. And they actually want to implement like a one world religion, a one world order. New World Order is what they call it, NWO, New World Order. And, it's very dangerous. These are extremely extremist beliefs. And, the ironic part is that they seem to criticize almost all other groups, and they don't seem to look in the mirror at their own supremacist ideologies and how racist and violent their own ideologies are. So, is it not offensive to say that you think someone is an animal or a dog? That is like the same thing as using a racial slur, calling a black person the N-word. If you're calling someone a goy or a goyim, that's a derogatory term that they are an animal and they should be your slave. That's basically what their whole ideology is. Okay, so let me just bring up these interviews to back up my points. So I have a couple interviews. I have one interview with a guy named Adam Green. He has a news channel called No More News, and he's interviewing Israeli News Live, who is a husband and wife team. I'm not showing the wife today, but they either work together. Sometimes it's the wife, sometimes it's the husband, but it is a husband and wife team. They are Jewish by birth, but they are Christian as far as I know, and they live in America. So let's check that out and let's see what they have to say. Let me just put this down 1 second. Okay, let me just crank up the volume a little bit because it doesn't... Hold on, let me just crank up the volume. Hopefully it's not too loud or too low. Okay, here we go.
It's taught in Chabad and maybe in all of Judaism that Jews are chosen, they're divine, they are one with God. So if you're not allowed to criticize and curse God, you're not allowed to criticize them. So all of these anti-BDS laws, these anti-Semitism laws, they're, for all intents and purposes, implementing this Noahide law. Wouldn't you agree?
That's exactly the truth there, and that's why I say we have to look at the sub-laws, because when you get into these sub-laws, you do have to understand, and this is definitely Talmudic teaching, that the Jewish people are a divine race. As far as Gentiles, Jews are taught that the Gentiles are Golim or dogs. And a dog was considered the lowest animal there was on the planet Earth, according to Jewish teaching. And
dogs are the worst animal?
Yeah, they're considered, because the thing is that a dog could not be used in temple sacrifices.
Okay.
So they were considered the lowest of all the lows. And the Jew, as they will tell you, that they say you worship Jesus, and they'll say he was a Jew as the Son of God. And they'll tell you, but yet we are all sons of God. But we do not expect you to worship us like you worship Jesus. But yet there will be a reverence. I mean, you have to understand, I spent so much time in Jewish homes because of having friends that were Orthodox Jews, and there was always discussion about how that the Gentiles will serve us one day.
Well, it's all over YouTube. I've seen a bunch, and I'm about ready to put out a whole nother compilation video. People have been sending them to me so much since this latest attack, and I had a big video about Chabad and Noahide a few days before as well. I find it so interesting, this idea that dogs are unclean or the worst, because I saw a while back, this is just totally random, but I'm no fan. I hate Keith Olbermann, basically. He's awful. But he did this segment about Trump hating dogs. Trump always calls people dogs that he doesn't like, and apparently he's never owned a dog. And he goes through tweet after tweet after tweet of Trump apparently hates dogs because that's anybody he doesn't like, that's what he calls them. So interesting that maybe some of that mindset rubbed off on him. And also, isn't it true that, what you were just saying, isn't there a prayer or like a saying that Jews have, like, thank God I wasn't born a goyim?
Yes. Or a woman. If it's the men praying, they say they thank God that they were not born a woman, or they were not born a goyim,
so
a Gentile.
It's obvious they think they're chosen. They think they're going to rule over us. They think we're going to be their slaves. They think they have the higher IQ. They're divine. We're satanic souls. And then now all we're hearing about is white supremacists. Anybody that talks about their supremacy is a white supremacist. How do they get away with this? And how do they have so much power? I mean, I don't expect you to have an answer, but it's...
Well, Adam, the thing is because, let's face the facts. We allow the monetary system of this world to be put in the hands of the wealthiest, to put out a paper money, to charge interest on the people. Like, for example, this is one thing that I can't get over. Americans are giving aid to Israel. Military aid. What is it, 38 billion over 10 years?
I just saw, I guess there's a bill 3362, and they're trying to double the aid, put it up by 50% was the headline I shared today. They're asking for an increase, unsurprisingly.
Which is insane. One, what people may not know, Israel is debt-free. The state of Israel has no debt. Secondly, the United States people, the taxpayer, will have to borrow the money to give to Israel for military aid. When we borrow that money, we are going to borrow that money from wealthy Jewish bankers. And then we're going to pay interest on that money. And because that interest is compounded, we will never be able to repay that money back to the Jewish lenders that we're borrowing it from. It is a monopoly that is set up.
It's a racket. They make money on both sides.
Exactly. And they put us so much in debt that the American literally becomes the slave. Right. And this is what troubles me. You take like Gaddafi. People think Gaddafi was some of this.
Okay, and then I want to show you one more clip from this interview. And then I'll give my thoughts on that. And then I just have a couple other clips. I'm trying to keep it as short as I can. Okay, let me just see. It was around the 20-minute mark. 20, 28. Probably not going to be able to get right at where it's at. Okay. It's a little after this.
He centered around education. Now, why education though? I can take that and we could look at that in regards to what was said to me by a man that his family is deep into the intelligence community in the state of Israel. And he shared with me, he said, Steve, he said, there's coming a time very soon in your future in the United States, he said, well, he actually gave me the scenario. He said, Israel, he said, we're about to take out Lebanon and we're going to take out Syria. While we're doing that, he says, we know it's going to come down to a confrontation with Iran. And we're going to work with Jordan and Saudi Arabia to take down Iran while the United States has to deal with Russia. Now, Russia and Israel are allies anyway. It's not really that Russia would just up and attack America, but Putin, because he's also working with the Chabad organization, he'll throw a little nukes this way here to play the bad guy to make it look good. And I was even told by the guy here with the intelligence community, he said, Steve, he says, look, he says, when all this goes down, he said, you have to understand, your nation is going to get hit by a few nukes. He said, it's just going to be enough to send you back to a third world nation, cause chaos, but whatever you do, stay away from the FEMA camps. Because we're going to take and genocide your nation. Now, then, he said, then there will be a re-education.
And Israel will be able to emerge as the superpower of the world in the center of the world.
China will be the superpower.
Okay, well, what about, where will Israel's place be then?
Israel will make sure China obeys, just like America has obeyed.
So they're going to kind of betray America and then use China as their proxy.
Yes, China is to become the new military global power. And if you think about it, he was telling me that when all these things take place, he said those in American, the political and the elite, they will be placed in underground bunkers that have been built over the years. They will be kept there while things calm down. He said then they will be taken out of the country. Now, when he said they would be taken out of the country, the first thing that comes to my mind was, well, no wonder why they built all these ghost cities in China.
That's right.
After all, they've been thinking for decades about this. I had friends of mine, Adam, before I ever went into doing news and broadcasting and ministry work, me and my wife were very successful in business. And because we...
Okay, so you see the narcissistic dynamics playing out here. We have, this is on a large scale. We have countries trying trying to pit other countries against other countries, doing their dirty work. See, Israel wants to use the U.S. as a pawn to fight all their wars. More of our people die. They want us to do their dirty work, and then once they've used us for all they needed us for, they'll just stab us in the back and leave us for dead. They could care less about. Netanyahu is the devil incarnate. Okay, this guy is playing chess. He is. They want to use us to do all their dirty work, fight all their wars, get us into more debt. They have no debt, but they want to use us to do everything for them, and then they're just going to discard us like a piece of trash. It's the same thing in just a relationship or family narcissistic dynamics. It's the exact same thing playing out on a larger scale. Alright, now I want to show you, and this guy's going to break it down for you. Okay, now I'm just going to show you a brief clip here of Adam Green again, but he's interviewing a guy named Christopher John Bjerknes. I don't know how to pronounce it. I believe that he is also Jewish, and he is speaking out against this as well. So let me get to that clip. And you're going to see, he's going to explain how we're being used, how the United States is being used. Okay, so let's get to that. You see. Okay, here we go.
Isn't it just so frustrating to see the most supremacist people on earth? Anybody that talks about their supremacy, they spin it and say, you're a white...
He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. And each time take a bigger step and take over more territory. And of course they were going to make Jerusalem the capital. Everybody knew that, but they lied and said that they would not.
Next year, I mean, they have a prayer they always pray to rebuild the temple, and they're saying it's next year in Jerusalem. And the leader of CPAC tweeted that out this year. That, maybe we'll have CPAC in Jerusalem next year, and joked about it.
Yes, for centuries, that was the prayer that they would issue once a year, next year in Jerusalem, and they would toast to it. Now they got it.
Exactly, yeah. Isn't it just so frustrating to see the most supremacist people on earth? Anybody that talks about their supremacy, they spin it and say, you're a white supremacist. My videos on exposing Jewish supremacy get deleted off of YouTube. Meanwhile, there's thousands of videos talking about white supremacy being the biggest threat in the world. And I even see some Muslims and Jews kind of teaming up to fight whites, quote unquote white supremacy.
Well, just as they're trying to get Americans to be anti-Muslim, over in Muslim countries, they're trying to get Muslims to be anti-Christian and anti-West. Mm-hmm. They always play both sides, and they're dispersed around the earth. They are not genuine in their beliefs on either side. They are constantly trying to pit both sides against the middle to destroy one another. And again, if you look at the Zohar, Folio 32a, it talks about how they were going to get Ishmael, which is the Muslims, to instigate all kinds of wars so that the West also would consume itself in those wars against Islam. Americans don't realize it, but we were set up to fight those wars mostly to kill us off, not them. Israel, with its nuclear bombs, would have a very easy time defeating all of those nations should it choose to do it. The primary target of the Middle Eastern wars was the United States of America. And when we look at how Moshiach ben Joseph is fighting these wars, he's not doing it with a sword. He's more clever than that. In the Bible, in Genesis, it says that Jacob's twin brother Esau, who was born first and should have inherited the covenant, would be the soldiers and the slaves of Jacob. His descendants would be the soldiers and the slaves of Jacob. So they are utilizing us as their soldiers and their slaves to fight their wars. But part of that process is that we consume ourselves in these self-defeating wars. So Mashiach ben Joseph is waging war on the West and is destroying the West with horrendous debt and dysgenic warfare. And he has completely destroyed the reputation of the United States around the world by instigating us to fight these wars, and Netanyahu has been doing that for decades. And I think that is the way that Moshiach ben Joseph is first killing off the West. And he has almost succeeded, and his next war is slated to be the war against Shiroi, king of Persia, in which he will fight that war with the king of Persia. And he'll probably, go ahead, he may be so old or something, he'll die of cancer while he's fighting that war, and then they'll claim the prophecy had been fulfilled. But you cannot say that because Netanyahu has not put on a suit of armor and engaged in battle against the West, that he has not been fighting against the West. He has caused America tremendous harm, which will eventually destroy us. We are saddled with so much debt that we cannot maintain that debt, and they're going to start looting our country to pay off that debt. They're going to sell off the national forests, they're going to sell off our national resources, and they're going to take all the gold from the United States and they're going to transfer it to the temple in Jerusalem. That's also one of the prophecies, that all the gold, all the jewels, and all the treasures of the world go to Jerusalem. And you can see that I'm not making this up if you read Rabbi Higger's book, The Jewish Utopia. It talks about that a lot, about how the Jews are slated to receive all the gold, all the silver, and all the jewels in the earth, and that the city of Jerusalem will be filled with gold and jewels.
Yeah, that's their plan. They want to have the wealth of all the nations, like in the time of King Solomon, is what I read. And you just said all the things.
Well, the reasons why that is, the Jewish king in the old feudal system and in all kingdoms.
Okay, so you see how this is playing out, where the U.S. is being used as a pawn? They want us to do all their dirty work, screw us over, chew us up, spit us out, and then when they don't need us anymore and we can't be used anymore, just discard us. And then I have one more clip of, let me see here. Well, Doreen Dotan. This woman is a Zionist. Look at this video she posted up of just a few days ago. Christianity and Islam locked on a mad course. You see what I'm saying? They want Christians and Muslims to knock each other off, and they'll just sit back and laugh and be like, what a bunch of idiots. This is what they actually want. I made another video with Doreen Datan saying she was a fascinating woman. At that point in time, I had not looked at the rest of her channel. I just liked the fact that she was speaking out. She made some videos on psychopathy, which I thought were really good. I had not looked at the rest of her channel. I had no clue she was a Zionist. But she admitted in one of her other videos that she is a narcissist, and I think she said she was a cerebral narcissist, and she claimed she was of the more altruistic variety, which is very interesting because I've seen her in the comments just literally shred Christians, or if you mention Jesus, so it's blatantly obvious what she's up to, but let's listen to her commentary here. Let's just listen to a brief clip.
There's a thing in Christianity about flunkies. You don't love Jesus much either. You just love the idea of some Jew being your flunky in your dreams. God doesn't make Jews to be your flunky. Nobody died for your sins. You're going to pay for your sins one by one. It might take 100 years, it might take 150 years, it might take 1,000 years. It's going to come back at you. You do not have to be afraid of Nibiru crashing into this planet. What's crashing into this planet is your own destiny. Islam and Christianity are locked onto an assured mutual destruction course. They are going to annihilate one another. Islam retains those elements in Judaism.
Okay, I just wanted to show that clip. Do you see how she's talking in almost like... Let me bring this back up. Almost like in a, let me fix this. Oops, sorry. Okay. Almost like in a threatening manner she's speaking. And it's just amazing how they put these videos out, and then she's saying, oh, you guys, like she's making it like it's an insult, as if we look at Jesus Christ as our flunky, and yet they think that Christians are dogs and cattle that should be their slaves. Does anyone see the total hypocrisy and irony and perversion of this thought pattern, these type of thought patterns? It's like they want to, what's that quote in the Bible? Something about looking at the speck in other people's eye, but not pulling the rock out of your own eye. I don't know what I'm saying it all wrong, but something to that effect, where you're pointing the finger at other people, and yet you're doing the exact same thing, if not worse. But you see what's going on here? They're trying to pit all of these different groups against each other, and yet they want to rule over all of us and bring in this new world order, one world religion, and Noahide laws that state that Christians should be beheaded for being idolatrous, and all this, just unbelievable type of beliefs, unbelievably supremacist, like we're better than you should be our slaves, and you're nothing more than our lackeys. So this is exactly what narcissists do. They try to pit everyone against each other. See, they want to get the world in complete chaos and take over, and so they can rule everything. And so it's just totally chaotic. I thought if I showed you these few clips, it would bring great insight into how these people actually think and how backwards their thinking is. So I just wanted to do a brief video. I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on this, because I was shocked at how how blatantly supremacist these ideologies are. And you have to understand that did you hear Christopher John Bjerknes? I don't know how to say his last name. If you notice, he said in the US they try to pit Christians against Muslims. Do you know the whole war on terror, the whole 9/11? The Zionists committed. They are behind 9/11. But see, the reason for that was, if you noticed in the US media at the time, they brainwashed everyone then to be leery of Muslims. So you see what's happening here? Muslims then became the scapegoat. I would say if you had a dysfunctional family of religions, let's just say, the Christians and the Muslims, I guess, would be the scapegoated children, and the Jews would have been the golden child. I'm talking about in the minds of Zionists. This is what they believe. So, they tried to scapegoat the Muslims. So, the United States is pretty much a Christian nation. So then you have this Christian nation. We needed a scapegoat. We needed someone to blame. Oh, who killed all them Americans? Well, the Zionists were behind it, and it's been proven. And there are videos on YouTube if you want to really find out, because the information is there. So, and then if you notice, he said then they go to the Muslim nations. Remember, they run the entire media. I know they run it in the US. I don't know if they run it in other countries. They probably do, because that's what Christopher was saying. He was saying in the Muslim nations, they try to get them to not like the Christians, and in the Christian nations, they try to get them to not like the Muslims. Meanwhile, they are the problem. So this gets everyone blinded and confused, exactly what narcissists do, and gets them off of the target and the real problem. So now we know who the actual problem is and who needs to be looked into closer. So then the whole American media is Zionist run. Okay, we have the mainstream media who tells you nothing. Then we have, there are two large political organizations which aren't mainstream, but they're probably the largest internet-based political channels, which is Ben Shapiro on the conservative side, and then we have the Young Turks on the Democratic side. So Ben Shapiro is an absolute Zionist puppet, okay? So they have a bunch of Zionists infiltrated into our media platforms and systems here in the US. Now, Ben Shapiro, he's American, so I'm not saying he's not allowed to be here or something. He was born here. But the point is, when you start digging further, you realize that a lot of these people have, like, I think it's called dual citizenship, and they, even though they're Americans, they are acting out and working on behalf of the Zionists within our country. So they basically, I don't want to say infiltrated our country because he was born here, but they are working on behalf of Israeli interests and not ours. So Ben Shapiro is part of what I call the distraction mafia. He's, part of the charade of people that try to completely confuse people. And he's an admitted Zionist. He actually admitted this. There's a video on YouTube. So, I mean, they can't even hide it. It's there. The information is there if you dig it up. So, basically, they have all of these people infiltrated into our media to keep us brainwashed about what's really going on so they can lay out all of their evil plans. So, keep your eyes peeled, pay attention to what is going on. Narcissists play both sides, okay? They pit people against each other, they cause destruction and chaos, and they want to keep their hands clean, like they're, Mr. and Mrs. Goody Two-Shoes, and they didn't do anything. It couldn't be further from the truth. We need to find the correct culprit, and that is the Zionists.